The reason I'm making this is because I've gotten so many questions and the internet situation is so weird every day from well-meaning individuals in the community asking for updates on the SAG-AFTRA strike and recasts, etc. Stuff that most actors really don't have any insight on, right? We're just actors. We don't know what Hoyo is thinking, etc., etc.
Yeah, Okay, sure, yeah, whatever.
Previously on Havono covered the VA situation, I gave my thoughts on Takanashi, being that he is not a scab nor a thief for taking the role of Kenichi, and if Hoyoverse ever had to make some moves, they had to do it with a lot of discretion. And I didn't plan a sequel to this, but I guess we have this video right here from Wriothesley covering the SAG-AFTRA situation in its full detail, and I'm gonna take his word for it. Mainly because this dude's a professional VA, and professionals are usually more nuanced about this than we can ever be. So let's see what he has to say.
Actors who are a member of the union, SAG-AFTRA, are not allowed to work on those certain struck games from those certain struck companies. Games that are non-union, meaning that their companies are not signed to union contracts, are by definition not struck. In addition to that, games that started production before the strike are also not struck. It's a very confusing atmosphere, I know, but I can relieve that confusion for Genshin fans specifically by saying this. Do you know what company isn't in that select group of production companies being struck? Hoyo. I cannot emphasize enough that Mihoyo properties are not and never have been union games. Therefore, Genshin has never been a struck property. There are 0 union rules governing Genshin or any Mihoyo game, period. End of story as of this date. This is not a debate. This means, and I want you to listen very carefully here, if the SAG-AFTRA strike ended tomorrow, this would mean absolutely nothing for Hoyo Games and its actors. Genshin is not a union game. The actors working on it are not working under a union contract. Period.
Well, ain't this a damn revelation in and of itself? Because here's the thing, some of us had thought that Genshin was struck during the strike. So what was the issue for Genshin with the VA strike then? Well, let me tell you. It's that Hoyoverse had one signed in with Formosa Interactive. Yes, a struck company. And sometime after, they shifted over to another company called Side Global. And yes, Side Global did sign the SAG interim agreement, which means that the AI protections are already there. But what's still making them not want to come back then?
Genshin being under a union contract would also award the actors the added intended benefit of having the SAG-AFTRA legal team behind them. If Hoyo, or any company, decides to disregard the contract and make replicas anyway, it would be up to the individual actor to sue them in a non-union contract. A complicated, expensive thing to do for a single individual, to the point of, honestly, like near impossibility. I'm not gonna go toe-to-toe with Hoyo using my own legal team, which I don't have. But it's much easier for a union with 160,000 members in it to do so on an actor's behalf. Now, the historical effectiveness of SAG-AFTRA's legal team could be called into question here as to whether or not they would do the job or do a good job, but I'm trying to outline the principles here, okay? A union contract would afford an actor the protection if Hoyo or any other game company broke that contract. I said I would avoid speculation in this video, so I won't start throwing around ideas as to why Hoyo hasn't done this yet, other than what I've already said. But I do want to emphasize that this action is absolutely well within their power. Other companies like them in China have signed union agreements in the past. So yes, the paperwork is real, the finances are real, the international complications are real, but let's be honest, resource constraints are not the barrier here. And that's part of what's made this situation so frustrating for so many people. The perception, maybe the reality, I'm not sure, that Hoyo could fix this with just a single signature on a union contract and just hasn't done it, right? That's what's frustrating people. Had Hoyo gone union a year ago, many of the actors working on it would have qualified for their health insurance on Genshin alone. A huge, huge benefit for actors.
With that note from Side Global taken into account, I just had an allegory get into this. You know when the doctor tells you to only take one pill every day? Well, it seems like these VAs kinda wanted Hoyo to take 2 of them. One from Side Global and one from SAG-AFTRA themselves. All for the sake of 200% protection against AI replication, because goddammit is it actually fucking annoying. But does this feel too much? Or is this based on the experience that the VAs had working with Formosa? So it makes you see the motivation and desire these VAs have in supporting this idea that Hoyoverse should sign the SAG interim agreement, even when Side Global already promised that in the first place. However, if Side Global eventually becomes Sideline and Hoyoverse decides to do the voice work in-house, that's when such an agreement like this would actually become remotely useful. And now that we have it out of the way, what's next?
Consider a Taft-Hartley like a temporary 60-day union pass to allow someone who is non-union to work on a union job. After that, they're considered a must join, at which point, like the status implies, they must join the union or stop working union jobs. I'll break here for a second and tell you that it is significantly more complicated than that. There are caveats as to when the Taft-Hartley triggers, for example. It's also possible to negotiate an individual waiver with the union and say, look, I'm only ever going to work this one union job. Please don't make me join. I won't do anything else. And they can say yes. There's flexibility here. These, however, are edge cases that are just beyond the scope of this video. Why an actor might not want to join the union. The entry fee itself can be steep, depending on where you live. Mine was nearly $4,000 when I joined 10 years ago. So that talent would have to know for certain they were going to get at least 5 sessions out of Genshin to make up for that loss. That's about how much money you'd make in 5 union video game sessions, depending on the tier that you're in. Again, complicated. Or that actor would have to feel confident enough that they could book other union work to help them bring that number, that entry fee number, back to 0. You do get pension and health benefits, okay? But you only qualify for health benefits if you earn a certain income of union work, around $30,000 a year. You would need to do 30 Genshin sessions to make that, probably more like 35, which makes healthcare sort of a moot point for Genshin actors, unless, again, you're confident you're going to get other union work. You can also break up that entrance fee into a payment plan. So it's not like you'll just get like a $4,000 bill, but it's still $4,000 you might not want to spend. Joining the union also technically prohibits an actor from doing any non-union work, which statistically comprises nearly 80% of all voiceover work available. We call this rule Global Rule 1, so you might have heard that terminology before. When you're union, you cannot work non-union jobs. Yikes.
And yet my curiosity continues. So firstly, if Genshin were a union game, then the rule I'm pretty sure still applies, but to complete 5 Genshin sessions in 60 days alone? I'd still say that's a lot of pressure for somebody who just wants to get to the work and their first game just be Genshin. And second, if you've had non-union jobs that pay you pretty well, then can that money be eligible to contribute to the $30,000 for the health benefits then? Because if I'm not mistaken, these prices look pretty steep, and that makes a really enticing offer just turn sour for a lot of people. And if the VA couldn't get those roles, then it's good as not join the union at all? Like, I'm feeling pretty divisive, but I'm still grateful for the transparency that Joe right here is just giving us right now.
If you're in the union and you're in Genshin, are you breaking the rules? The answer is, you guessed it, you've been paying attention, it depends. But yes, probably you are breaking the rules. The "it depends" part is a caveat in union membership called the financial core, or FI core status, which is a complicated legal caveat I don't want to get into here. But if you're FI core, you can legally work non-union jobs as a union member without being penalized. You do lose some surrogate benefits, like the ability to vote in union elections, be on any board or committee in the union, attend union functions, go to union classes, etc. But you do retain health and pension benefits. I say this here because I get that question a lot, specifically about health and pension. There used to be a large social stigma associated with being FI-Core. For example, the SAG-AFTRA official website still calls them scabs. It's a little strange. But as the landscape has changed over the last 20 years, particularly in voice acting, it's not quite the reality anymore. You are never actually forced into being a full member of the union. You do, in fact, have options. But the landscape is complicated. The truth of it is, though, that many union actors do take that calculated risk without going FI-Core. Union voice actors work non-union jobs fairly often. We also call this working off the card, and historically have not gotten in trouble for it.
And that clears up the question of, can this union actor go back to doing a Hoyoverse game? Because that part of the video actually elaborated on FI-Core, the eligibility of union actors doing non-union jobs, and the percentages on actors doing it. So I get the idea that most of these actors who hadn't come back are just striking for complete solidarity, aka supporting their fellow colleagues and everything. But outside of what I've been saying, This video is a truly phenomenal way to get up to speed with the voice actor situation. It does clear up a lot of things from the smoke for me, and it does add tons of layers into the situation that we may not have really thought about before. So even if you're not primarily a gacha player, this will easily give you the scoops on what's happening and why is it happening, especially as the entire video game industry does not revolve around gacha in the first place. And that 80% of non-union work could also come from movies or music videos, commercials, and anime. There's a lot that these voice actors could easily contribute to in the media space. However, before anybody asks, I would like to clarify that my stance on the Takanashi situation has not changed whatsoever from this video, as I was mainly taking this as a way to know the perspective of a strike from a voice actor. As such, the link to the original video will be provided in the description as well as the iCard over here. And I hope that in the future we can all keep the same energy when another VA gets screwed over, and yet they are as gracious and grateful as much as humanly requested. And even then we never learn, don't we?